from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased to join with me Erik Salo, who's the VP for Marketing and Product Management at Vdura. Erik, thank you very much for making the time today. I know, for someone like yourself, how busy it could get, but you took the time. So what I would love to do is, to keep it to you, to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your journey, and then we can start the discussion from there.
Mehmet, thanks. Well, first, it's a pleasure to be on the show. So I really appreciate the invite. So let's see. I started out, I wanted to be a mechanic, right? I love machines. I wanted to work on cars and things like that. And my parents told me, they said, you got to go to college. And so I ended up in the computer business almost immediately. And man, it's just been interesting and fun. My first job was as an engineer at power plant, and there was a summer job. And then my first real job was actually as an engineer at a company that made quarter-inch data storage cartridges. So they were called Carlisle memory products, and they made these, little data tape projects. I think they were maybe 50 megabytes or something like that. And, it's crazy. This is, 30 something years ago. And when I joined the company, they said, hey, welcome to this company. It's a great place to start your career. You're really going to grow here, but tape, not really going to last more than 3 or 4 more years. And you're going to have to probably do something else, for your career. And, it's amazing 30 something years later, people are still using tape, but that was my first job was in the data storage industry. So super fun, super interesting. I went to AMD after that, and man, what a great run I had at AMD, more than 10 years. And, some of the good times, we had the first 64-bit processor while I was there. I started and ran the embedded division and ended up being the strategist for the desktop group. I was there for the acquisition of ATI. I participated in that. It was really a good move. You think about it today with AI, if AMD didn't have ATI, it would be a whole different company. I was also there when they split from having their own fabs. Originally AMD, like Intel, had their own fabs. They said, hey, we can't really afford this. And so they split to global foundries. And, both of those moves, this many, probably 20 years later, seem kind of prophetic. I did a startup after AMD, which was super fun, cloud software and technology for electric vehicles. I loved it. It was 3 years, didn't go, but man, what a great group of people and a lot of fun. And then I went to Seagate, and I had a great run at Seagate. I ended up running all product and markets for the OEM business and the systems business and the distribution channel, so a couple of $1 billion portfolio. And then about a year ago, I moved from a big company and moved to Vdura, which is just an amazing change. And we make software, storage software for HPC and AI, and it has just been a blast. And the opportunities we have to do the right thing and to make great products are really exciting. So there's a 2-minute summary of my whole career.
What a ride, I would say, Erik. Really, it's a very great experience, and I'm sure that the audience will benefit a lot from every single word you're gonna say today. So it's interesting that it looks like you, because when we talk about machine learning and AI, we still talk about data. So I'm always curious to speak, especially from products, for someone who does the product and the marketing also as well. So when it comes to machine learning and AI, I think there's a lot in the back end, as we call it, that doesn't come to the picture, which is, the importance of having a proper data platform and, having your data set in places. So if you want to walk us through from, I would say, because I have a, little bit kind of special treat to everyone who works in product. So when it comes to data platforms, like if someone want to explain, there will be no one better than someone like yourself, I would say, Eric, to explain to us, the importance of data platform when it comes to machine learning and AI. So why it's important to have this base, if you want.
It's such a great question. And, data is where the gravity is, right? So, I spent, fundamentally half my career making CPUs and designing CPUs and half my career making storage. And the gravity is with the data. And that's the thing that's the critical insight. If you have a compute instance, you can spin it up in America, and then you can turn it off and spin it up in Europe somewhere. And you can, it's somewhat ephemeral. It's not trivial, right? There's a lot going on. And especially with the AI world, the computing strategy has changed significantly. But the fact is that it's all about what you're computing, right? And you're computing data. And that's the whole thing. And so the data is hard to move, right? It's like, if you have a petabyte of data, oh my gosh, that is an amount of IP that has its own gravity, and it's not easily just moved back and forth between places. And so the strategy for creating data, keeping data, and accessing data is really the key to all these modern innovations, right? This, if you look at it just from 30,000 feet, it's actually a revolution in what we're doing with the data, not with the computer. It's very interesting. Of course, they're directly related, but the data is the thing with the value ultimately, and it's the thing with the gravity.
Absolutely. Now, when we talk about data, Eric, also as well, and we know how important is the data for training the models, and making sure that these LLMs have this. So if you want to walk us through also like this specific use case when it comes to training for of the data for the LLMs, and these use cases that everyone start to talk about. So like, not technically of course, but on a maybe high level, and maybe you can touch base also on how you can enable this when you talk to customers in your role today at Vdura.
Sure. So one of the things to realize is that all of the modern things are happening so fast in this world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's like, it seems like your paradigm is obsolete in a couple of months if you don't pay attention. But fundamentally, all the current models here in September 2024 are based on this strategy from this Google paper, attention is all you need. And what they do is they get this big bunch of data, and it's all about the data. And they say, all right, well, let me give this thing a prompt, and let me guess an answer. And how close is the answer to what, my data says, right? And it just does that over and over and over again. So, let's think about what that means. The simplicity of it is striking, by the way. It's just striking how simple it is. Now, it's not easy, right? But what's happening is quite simple. It's just happening at a scale that I think any human has trouble comprehending. But if you think about what's important, so first of all, you've got to have a big data set, right? I think that, when we look back on this industry at 10 or 15 years and it's a little more mature, the winners are going to be the ones not with the big compute, but with the good deep data sets. I think that's really the thing that's going to make a difference, because ultimately, all these machines are just basically guessing what the next bit of data is going to be. So if you don't have any data, you can't do that. So one is having the data, and two is keeping the data. And that's one of the things that we've really focused on at Vdura, is that, the storage that is close to the compute is always very fast, right? And, even, for many years, it was funny, we talk about AI being a new thing, but I've been working on machine learning stuff for, pushing 30 years, for a long time. And you recalled it other things, and I think, it was more boring, but ultimately, this idea that computers look at data in a thoughtful way, find patterns in the data that are useful to people, is ultimately what's happening here. And I think it's happening at a level of effectiveness that's astonished the world. But ultimately, it's been going on for a long time. This is, this is not the beginning, but, it's we're decades into this journey. So the storage is very fast. That talks to the computers. And in general, in the beginning, right, when people created parallel file systems, what are called parallel, meaning like many storage elements, usually hard disks, many storage elements work at the same time. And when you add up all of their transfer rates, you get really fast data, right? So it's called parallel file system. Everything works in parallel. And the early parallel file systems like Lustre, for example, or GPFS, they were really fast, but they were really kind of glitchy, right? We always call I worked a lot on Lustre earlier in my career, and we call it like an F1 car. It's like, it goes really fast, but it takes a team of engineers and white coats to start the thing. And it crashes quite a lot, right? And that's how it's been. That's how high performance storage has been for a long time. What Vdura and originally we were Panasis. The original vision for the company that we have kept is like make storage fast, but also make it easy, right? Make it reliable, make it easy to use, just like enterprise storage, think like a NAS or something like that. And so, as these LLM models and in general what we're doing with machine learning, as that matures, it's going to become more and more important that your data is safe, right? And that's our number one goal of the company is keep customers' data safe. Wake up every morning, think about how do you not lose your customers' data, because ultimately I think that's the valuable commodity. That's the thing that's going to distinguish who wins this race with AI, is who's got the best data, who can keep it safe, and who can use it effectively.
Absolutely, Erik. And, out of curiosity, because you mentioned, about safeguarding the data, and, it's on top of mind. So what are like some of the, I would say, shortcomings or challenges you see in the customer space today that they are maybe not, I would say, putting a lot of effort in doing, or maybe there's some, I would say, the lack of, especially when it comes, to, I know this for a fact from my personal experience, but I want to see also your point of view. So because, the customers thinks usually that, this data is replicated, and, if they are using, let's say, data lakes, or they are using something in the cloud or something like this, so they think it's not part of what they should be doing. So if you can enlighten us on that part, because I think this is very important, because if you lose the data, you lose your ability to do anything, right? Again, this is not only for the AI use cases, but I think with AI, it becomes more critical and crucial to safeguard this data. So what are you seeing in that space, Erik?
Well, one of the amazing things is that the technology that stores most of the data used by AI today is based on a very old strategy, right? So you think about, let's go way back. I don't know how far back, but let's go back before clouds, right? Clouds are old.
Sure.
That old. What people did was they did what's something called highly available architectures, right? Dual, active. And what they do is they'd have two computers, essentially, AMD, and each computer could talk to all the stuff that the other one could talk to, right? Now, normally they each talk to, say, half the storage elements, CPU elements, but if one of them broke, right? If one of them failed, then you could fail over that other one, right? And that's called scale up. That's a scale up. It's traditional architecture. When I was at Seagate, we sold SAN arrays, sold probably more SAN arrays than anybody in the world. I've been selling those products for decades and decades and decades. And they're pretty good until they start to get big, right? When they're small, right? When they're in half a rack or something like that, which was a lot of storage 20 years ago. Well, all of a sudden that strategy starts to break down. And as those systems get larger, they actually get less reliable, right? They get less durable, meaning they're more likely to lose data, and they get less available, meaning they're more likely to go offline and give you no access. And so, as in the early days, when the first CSP started thinking about this, they're like, oh my gosh, there's no way at the scale of data we're thinking about and the scale of compute we're thinking about, there's no way to make a single or dual scale-up device reliable enough. It's like if I've got one of them, it's pretty good, but if I've got 50 of them, or 5,000 or 50,000, there's no way, right? My numbers just go down. And so they came out with this other strategy, scale-out strategy, or shared nothing strategy, where a cloud basically has all these different elements. Let's say, have you heard of erasure coding? It's erasure coding. Fundamentally, it's a subset of RAID. It's fundamentally or the other way around. But it's the way that we protect data in these large systems. What you do is you take a chunk of data, say a picture of your cat, and you say, okay, I'm gonna break that picture of a cat up into 10 chunks. But then I'm gonna have two other chunks, and if I lose any two chunks, any of them, I can get the whole picture of the cat back, right? So that's erasure coding. Well, it turns out it's statistically or very, very reliable, and depending on how much you want to erasure code, you have to come up with durabilities that are astonishing, 99.999%. And that's what you think of in clouds. Unfortunately, a lot of the high performance storage has not done that. They've stayed in this dual active active world. And one of the things that actually attracted me to come to Vdura was that our strategy is we have a scale out strategy, or we have a shared nothing strategy. So the bigger the system gets, the more reliable the system gets. The bigger the system gets, the more valuable data you have, the less likely you are to lose it, right? And the more likely you are to be able to access it. And that's a fundamental architectural advantage that we have. And it's actually this biggest one of the biggest strengths of the company is that, I think this is more and more important as this data becomes central to how we live.
Right. I gotta ask a question. Of course, for me, I know probably the answer for that, coming from a technical background. But Erik, I want you also to maybe explain a little bit. I think this is very important, and for someone who's been in this domain for a long time, like yourself. So we talk also when it comes, to especially to AI today and machine learning. So we need the speed, right? And we talked about high performance computing for like decades, probably HPCs. And now we are in an age where people start to talk about, I want you to demystify this. So when we talk about HPC, at the same time, we see now, the rise of GPUs and TPUs and all this. So how like all these intersect together in the world of machine learning and AI?
Man, that's a good question. I think if I really knew the answer to that question, I'd probably have a different role. But there has been a really interesting shift, and it's happened more slowly than you might think. But in the beginning, with HPC, they use these general purpose processors, which are incredible feats of engineering, and they're really good at a wide range of tasks. And what we found with some of these really specialized tasks, right, like AI, is that the highly parallel GPU type engines are just faster, right? And they're actually quite a lot faster. I'm quite a hobbyist, and I played around with the Google TPUs, and there's a new one called Halo, and these little things that are the size of your thumbnail, they're the size of a little M2 chip. They're doing 14 trillion operations per second for a couple of watts kind of thing. So, the difference is that to train these LLMs, they're very amenable, or it's very efficient to use these GPU type processors. And that's the big switch, is that we've kind of found a workload that is much better served by a specialized processor than a general processor. That's the big difference.
Yeah, I think this is fair enough, I would say, Erik. For at least for me, this answer is good, very good, I would say. Now, another thing which I want you to touch base on, which is some of the use cases is like beyond machine learning and AI. So we start to see a lot of talks about autonomous systems and systems that they can, act on their own, right? So
not scary at all, right?
Sorry?
Not scary at all, right? What go wrong, dude?
Okay. Absolutely. So in that specific use cases is like autonomous systems. So are we talking about like something similar to predictive maintenance in the space of predictive maintenance? Are we talking in manufacturing? Where exactly are we seeing the use cases is more in autonomous systems?
Well, let me go on a little bit of a tangent before I answer your question. So almost 10 years ago, I realized that there was a fundamental thing changing, right? And it wasn't that people were making more data. People are making a tremendous amount more data than they ever have. And it's just like X to the cube, X to the right. That's not actually the big story, right? The big story is that machines have started making, and spend some time now, machines started making data for other machines, right? So it wasn't people making data for each other. It wasn't people making data for machines. It was machines making data for other machines. And that's the key thing, because, computers operate so quickly that as soon as you get into this circle, you can all of a sudden, get incredible growth in whatever it is you're trying to do, right? So that's the big thing. One interesting insight is that, it seems to be unintuitive it's going to stay this way, but boy, it sure looks like it is. When you train an LLM, you give it a bunch of data and you train it, and then you basically just kind of treat itself after that. And it so far it seems that the more cycles people throw at these LLMs training themselves, the better they're getting, which is just astonishing, right? Machines making it for other machines. So to actually get to your question, what industry is going to be most impacted? I think every part of our lives, every industry you can think of is somehow being transformed by this data revolution. So you can look at it in manufacturing. You think it's been, before this big revolution, some of the big retailers were using machine learning, not now called AI, to figure out how to stock shelves so that their robot pickers could go and, more efficiently get his stuff off the shelf. You're seeing that. I'd say energy, oil and gas. They are taking all this seismic data and other kind of survey data they have that's very expensive to create, and the algorithms just keep getting better and better. And they learn, there's this pattern of something in the data, and then that means that there's, some oil underneath there, kind of thing. That's getting better and better. That is continuing to be revolutionary. Medicine, genomics. I guess go forever, right? Like there's no industry that this is not touching and improving in a really substantive way, right? And that's what's exciting about it, is I just can't think of any part of technology or our world where you're not seeing, some big revolution. And, you're gonna have self-driving cars, and, the writing is great, and video generation, you're seeing movies being made. I just made an avatar of myself, and his top per good man, that's pretty good, right? So, you just see it everywhere. It's just explosion.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely, Erik. One thing which I should have maybe asked you when we talked about the storage and that part of or what you do at Vdura. So I've started to see a lot of people saying, like, I can't remember what accelerated the cloud adoption, but people are saying that machine learning and AI are accelerating the data center business to start to grow again. Are you seeing the same trends, Erik? Are you seeing like people are more tending to move their workloads, or maybe the workloads that would be used for their LLMs training, or maybe, I don't know, like for their data sets to be on their own data center? Are we seeing something like that?
I am not seeing clarity there. It's funny. I've been in this business long enough where I've kind of seen the everything to the cloud, everything out of the cloud. Okay, some stuff to the cloud, back and forth. And it's not clear to me how this will go in the long run. Now, right now, nobody can buy GPUs except for the big clouds. You think about, Meta, I think, just agreed to buy more GPUs, more money in GPUs than it costs to do the Manhattan project that created the first nuclear weapon, or the Apollo project that put a man on the moon, right? In real dollars, in today's dollars, right? Be astonishing. So the clouds are buying up a lot of the GPUs. So in many cases, the only way you can get them is to use the clouds. But it's just not clear to me. There's a couple of factors, right? So one, again, the gravity is with the data, right? So if you're a company that has a bunch of data on your own, boy, it does not make sense to store it in the cloud financially, right? Although it might be a lot easier, et cetera. You see some people doing that, but I absolutely don't. I think that you'll see almost forever this hybrid environment where when you've got a lot of data or a lot of compute that you want to have in your shop, then you're going to want the on-prem thing. And if you are either small or, you're really geographically diverse, dispersed, things like that, then you'll be in the cloud. And I just think that forever we're in this hybrid environment. I don't see a clear path one way or the other. I'm sure the cloud people would disagree with me, and the on-prem people would both disagree with me. They each think it's all coming to them, but I don't see it, right? I see a mixed environment pull forever.
Yeah, but the reason I asked this question, because I think and just for the sake of transparency, we are recording this on Monday, 9th September. So probably this will be out after 2 weeks from now. So during the weekend, I've seen, some posts from Michael Dell, and, he was saying like, so the business is back about the data center, because it seems, when people were shifting their workloads to the cloud, and now things started to flip around. So people want their compute close to them. And this is something actually you just mentioned at the beginning, Erik, also as well. So the challenge was always, to keep the data as close as possible to your compute, right? So now, if I want to ask you, after you've seen it all, and to your point, also you repeated this multiple times, that AI, machine learning are not the new. They, the study started in the early 50s of last century. But of course, generative AI, I think, it awakened the giant, I would say. So, but from infrastructure perspective, if you can, you know, do some predictions, I would say, and what do you think would be the next big thing from the infrastructure perspective? Of course, use cases you just mentioned, so there's no single you know aspect of our life that would not be affected, and we're gonna see these advanced innovations. But if I want to think about the infrastructure, so what are the things that you are exciting you the more, I would say?
Well, I'll tell you what, one big thing that's excited me and got me to move to Vdura, and on one of our big bets, is that there's going to be a convergence between, in the storage perspective, there's going to be a convergence between the ease of use and reliability of the enterprise world and the speed of the HPC world. So again, in a lot of ways, there's been two parallel storage worlds in the high end, pure storage. The fast stuff, the parallel stuff, has been fast, but just really flaky, right? Flaky is the right word. It's just, it goes down all the time. It's hard to manage. You have to have a group of storage admins to take care of it. There's a million knobs to turn, sort of thing, right? And, people have been willing to pay that price because they like the performance, right? So that's then one world. And then the other world that's growing out is actually most of my career here is the enterprise world, where those products have become just tremendously mature, the kind of the NAS and SAN world. They're easy to use. They're incredibly reliable in protecting your data. And of course, what that set of customers wants, they just want to turn the darn thing on and have it work. And they, when they need the data, they want the data, and they don't have to have a full-time admin to bother about it and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's, the easy button for storage. And what we believe at Vdura is that those two worlds are going to come together as this becomes more mature and more a part of our everyday computing life, right? So it's like, you don't want to have this kind of crazy, really hard to use storage on one side, right? You want it really easy to use storage, but you want it to be fast, right? And that's the bet that we've made, is that we believe that people want the performance of the fast processes, but they want the easy use, and in particular, the reliability of the enterprise world. And our product very directly brings those two things together into a single package.
Absolutely. Now I'm gonna a little bit shift gear and focus on your role as in product management, right? So maybe it's gonna be kind of a stuffed question, and sorry for that, but so two things, Erik. The first one is, especially in the realm of machine learning, AI, like how easy or hard it is to stay from product management perspective up to speed with everything that's around you. And the second thing, if we think about also the infrastructure part, sometimes do you feel also like it's getting a lot of players in that space, and you need really to do something special both on the technical and commercial side to do the differentiation? So how do you tackle these 2 points, if you want?
It is kind of a stuffed question. Well, so I'll tell you, so if I kind of go up to 30,000 feet and I'd look at my career, I've almost, been in product management for a great majority of it. I would say, at least for me, it's relatively easy to be right about what's going to happen. It's darn near impossible to be right about when it's going to happen, right? So it's like the technology curves are, if you pay close enough attention to the core technology, you can see what's happening, right? Because, there's a relatively long timeline between a fundamental innovation and a product, and what sometimes is decades. And so you can see it coming. The thing that I've just continually been astonished by is how fast or slow some things happen. So I remember when I was at AMD, we were predicting the demise of PCs, right? Oh, they're going down. And, turns out they've been going down in volume for 20 years since that, right? But, they haven't died. They went slow. If I look at AI, it's exactly the opposite. I remember looking at this landscape about a year ago and thinking, okay, well, I think this is going to happen and this is going to happen. It will probably happen over this time frame. And now I look a year later, I'm like, that's exactly what happened, but it happened in 1 year instead of 3. So that's really been the watchword for me, is the speed of which the machine learning world is moving is just different, faster than anything I've ever seen in my whole life. I've never seen a technology move at this pace. And that's the challenging part, is just to keep up with it because of how quickly it's going.
Absolutely. And I remember when, we did the call before we do the actual recording today, this is one of the things that I mentioned to you. So even for me, it's challenging because sometimes, we could have been discussing something today, and then by the time the episode is out, like completely something new would come out, and it become like kind of obsolete. It happened to me 2 times last year in 2023. So it's really like a little bit even challenging for someone not into that space. Now, I want to tackle a little bit about transitioning from being an engineer to product manager, Erik. Right? So, as an engineer, and I know from myself, I used to be an engineer myself. So, you always have the itch to solve problems, right? So, but you do it on the technical level. What I get to know also that once you become a product manager and you are in the PM space, right? So you focus more on different aspects. So you still solve problems, but you focus more on like customer needs, how they're going to use the product. So this shifting or this transitioning from being an engineer to the field of product management, what it takes, and is it like something, everyone you think can do it, or there is like some specific skills I need, if I'm an engineer today, I need to have to do this transition in my career?
Well, that's a good question. I'll tell you a story about how I became a product manager. So
Sure.
I was young. I got out of college relatively young. Started early, got out fast, and I had this idealistic. I remember telling myself one time, I'll only use Excel to express my ideas. I will never make a PowerPoint presentation in my life. Of course, I'll end that for 20 years presentations. But I was there, and I had a great manager, and I was talking to him one time, and I said, these marketing guys, these product managers, they don't understand the technology. And they did, as I recall, they come up with some roadmap, and I was like, that's not going to work at all. Like, it's not, it was just obvious to me. It was not a good direction. And if you knew, you knew where the technology was going, you just knew it was a bad strategy. And I said, they really need to do this. And, they're not thinking about, this new entrant of technology that we have, blah, blah. And I'm going off, and he says, well, I'll tell you what, kid, if you think you can do a better job, why don't you go do a better job? Right. And that was, I don't know, almost 30 years ago. I've been doing it ever since. And that's the key for me, has been, you have to understand 3 things equally well. One is you have to understand the technology, and a lot of people forget about that, right? You have to mess around with the technology. You have to be a hobbyist. You have to be interested. You have to read all the interesting news, right? You really have to pay attention, because the threat of new entrants, new technology is ultimately what's going to drive innovation in any industry, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, and this was the hardest for me to learn, but the most important, was talk to customers, right? And I had another manager some years later who, he told me, he says, Erik, just keep going out to the field, keep talking to customers, because if you just sit in the factory, you sit in corporate and, kind of eat your own dog food, you'll forget the pain they're going through, you forget the problems they're trying to solve, and you won't be very smart about solving their problems. And, it's that, you got to talk to customers. And of course, you have to talk to customers, and you have to think about what they say. Because, if you say, hey, Mr. Customer, what should I build? Well, they're not the technology experts. So they're almost always going to say, build me something 20% faster, 20% cheaper than others selling today. And, early in my career, I went off and did that. And then I'd come up like, here's the thing. And you ask for, like, that's true. We did ask for that. But then your competitor came out with this new technology and it's better. I'm really sorry. I'm going to buy that instead. And so you've got to listen to them. You got to think about what they say. It's very important, but also you have to think about what the technology is going to do. And that's the position that you have that's different, right? You're the expert in your field, right? You're not the expert in, like you have a customer, no, we have customers in the medical field. I was just out. And, they're worried about the new technology in their world, and they're not thinking about storage technology. So if I'm not thinking about that, nobody's thinking about that. So, understand the technology, understand what your customers' real needs are and how to address them. And then number 3, understand what's realistic in engineering and operational execution, right? I see a lot of product managers designing the most beautiful, elegant products in the world, but nobody can build them. They can't design them. They can't build them once they are designed, and they never get out to market. So just a healthy dose of like operational realism, operational awareness is very important. Those are, to me, those are the 3 legs of the stool.
To me, Erik, like it seems, I told you also before, like I have this special also compassion for people in product management because, during my career, I had to deal a lot with them and they were super helpful for me. And, they were, kind of guide to me. So what you mentioned now, this balance between understanding, of course, the customer pain points and then understanding what's buildable, and then, the engineering part also as well, and then making sure that you can market it in a proper way. Of course, like you don't do the marketing yourself, but you need to take this message. So this communication with the marketing people, because part of, I know this for a fact, is that you build the product that people they want, and then you design it the best way possible. Of course, it's like a continuous process. But when it comes to the marketing part, and of course later giving it to the field sales people. So again, shifting from engineering background, like how was this experience from your perspective, Erik?
It's really interesting. All the engineers think about marketing. All the marketing guys think I'm an engineer in every company I've ever worked at, right? But marketing in particular is such a delicate art. People, I think there's, especially in technology companies, there's a tendency to give a lot of respect for the engineers and not a lot of respect to the marketing people. But the fact is that it's a very artful job, and you don't know if you did well for probably a year after you did something, right? I mean, the amount of time is long. So you really have to be super just thoughtful and careful about what you go do. But ultimately, marketing, the way I look at marketing is it's a delightful force multiplier, right? So if you put 10% of your sales budget into marketing, 5%, 10%, you'll get something like a 10x multiplier on that investment, right? So ultimately, good marketing does 2 things, right? So I thought marketing, there's two functions of marketing. One is to position and promote the products that you have in the best way. And number 2 is to pay enough attention to what's happening in the industry to give feedback to the technologists early enough where they can do something about the information, right? So there's actually an interesting two-way function of marketing that a lot of people overlook the second one, but very, very important.
Right. So, we are almost like coming to an end, Erik, with you today. If you want to give us with like final words of wisdom, if you want to share anything, that maybe we didn't cover, like just in couple of minutes with the audience, what would that be?
I've had an opportunity in my career to do a wide range of stuff, right? It's been just amazing. And I'd say the thing that is the most fun and what I'm doing now is, I spent essentially 25 years as a device manufacturer. Very challenging, very rewarding. The companies I was with were very good to me. Had a great career in it. But ultimately, what you're doing is you're servicing solution providers. And one of the things that I realized after some time of doing it is like, you get to see what everybody else is doing, right? And not like precisely what they're doing, but you get to see all the practices, right? It's like, for example, when I saw these software companies coming in and saying, our software just runs on any hardware, commercial off the shelf, commodity hardware. Well, no, succeeded because every time somebody tried to run the software, something would go wrong, and then they'd have to use engineering to fix it. I was like, that's not going to work, right? And so, you look at that, that's not a great business model. And so we figured out at Vdura, well, hey, we're going to create an appliance, but financially we're just going to be a software company so our customer gets best of both worlds. 25 years of making devices, compute and storage just taught me there are best practices in being a solution provider, and the delightful journey that we've got at Vdura is we're able to go in and just put all those best practices in place and build a great product for the spread in the world that we're seeing.
That's fantastic. Final thing, Erik, where people can find more about Vdura and maybe get in touch with you.
Go to www.vdura.com, right? Like on my shirt outside. And come and see us at Supercomputer. We're gonna have a big presence at Supercomputer. We're super excited in Atlanta in November.
That's fantastic, Erik. Really, I enjoyed the conversation. Like you have, a treasure with you. I mean, because you have seen a lot in your career, and you enlightened us a lot around everything related to AI, storage systems, parallel computing, HPC. So we discussed a lot with you today. So thank you very much for taking the time. And for the audience, don't worry, the link will be in the show notes if you are listening to us on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you can also see it in the description. And this is usually how I end my episodes. So if you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, please subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming and send me their comments and their suggestions, please keep doing so. I read all of them and I take all your comments into consideration. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be again in a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.